Good evening everyone. Continuing from the previous video where we left. In this video we'll read about the Government of India Act 1919 and what led to it. But before all that, you guys might have a question that all those reforms that are being done by the British government continuously, are these reforms being done unanimously by the British government? क्या ये reforms अपने आप कर रहे हैं वो लोग बिना किसी pressure के? The answer is no for sure. These reforms are the result of the amid pressure that were put upon the British government, and for that, if you guys want to know the timeline, then you might note that particular timeline. I'll tell you the timeline. If you'll consider the first reform, that was the Government of India Act 1858, it just came after the War of 1857. That is the first struggle for independence. You can leave the Indian Councils Act 1861 because it might be a reform, but after that the subsequent act that came, that act was known as Indian Councils Act 1892. That act was the result of the formation of the Indian National Congress that was formed in 1885 by A.O. Hume. After that particular act, the next act was Indian Councils Act 1909. That Indian Councils Act 1909 was a result of the formation of the Muslim League and the amid transfer of the power from the moderates to the extremists in the Indian National Congress that was led by the Bal Gangadhar Tilak, you can say, and that actually compelled the British government to go to do certain reforms. That in 1909 Indian Councils Act is also known as Morley-Minto reforms. After all that after all those reforms, the Congress actually recognized that from the Morley-Minto reforms, the British government is actually trying to divide the India in between the Muslims and in between the Hindus, because the Muslim League was formed in 1906. They were trying to divide the India, and by dividing they wanted to delay the Indian independence or the Indian want for the self-government. So basically what the Congress and the Muslim League together realized, Muslim League under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Congress under the leadership of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, they met in the Lucknow, that is known as the Lucknow Pact 1916, and in that particular pact it was realized, it was resolved, and it was agreed in between both the parties that now they will work for the unification of the Hindus and Muslims in the country. The structure that the Indian government will have once it attains self-government or independence was also discussed. It was decided that India must have a parliamentary system of democracy or parliamentary system of governance once it attains independence. Before all this, what happened interestingly was that the Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa in 1915, where he led a movement against the racial discrimination against Indians that was going in the South Africa. He emerged as an international leader out from there and was respected all over the world. So after Gandhi came, the Indian independence movement or the Indian movement to gain self-government got pace actually. Gandhi led from the front along with Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and the movement got some pace. After all that, what happened was that Gandhi announced Rowlatt Satyagraha against the Rowlatt Act that was passed in 1919 with the aim to curb the freedom of speech and expression of Indian people, Indian politicians, with the aim to curb the protests that were going inside the country. Actually, the Britishers realized that with the advent of the Mahatma Gandhi inside India, the power of the Congress has doubled, because Bal Gangadhar Tilak was already there and he was compelling them to do what Indians wanted. They knew this duo could actually trouble them by converting these small political movements into the nationalist movements, and that thing was actually happening at that point of time. People started realizing that whatever is happening for them. They started coming out of their homes, they started participating in protests, they started raising slogans against the Britishers, and these all things alarmed the Britishers and made them realize that slowly these small movements are converting into the nationalist movements. And to curb all this, they passed the Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act gave them the power to arrest anyone whom they found dangerous without any trial, without giving them any chance to be heard, and this created a sense of amid anger among Indians. Mahatma Gandhi also got the support of the president of the Muslim League, who was Muhammad Ali Jinnah at that point of time. This created a sense of unification among the Hindus and Muslims, and they found that it might be possible that their ideologies are different, their ways are different, but their ambition is same, and the ambition is the realization of self-government independence. Subsequently, after this movement, another movement is started under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi in June 1919. That movement is known as Khilafat movement. That movement was against the removal of the Khalifa of the Muslim world, who was the king of the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire actually lost in the First World War, and the British, and in order to reduce the power of the Muslims all over the world, the Britishers actually wanted to remove the Khalifa of the Muslim Empire, that was the king of the Ottoman Empire, from his post of the Khalifa. But under the leadership of Gandhi, the Hindus joined the Muslim movement, Khilafat movement, and actually Hindus participated in this movement in large numbers, and actually it created a sense of brotherhood and solidarity among the Hindus and Muslims, which was very important further in the coming nationalist movements and the movements for the independence of India. The Indian National Congress, that was established in 1885, became much more active since the start of the First World War, as they realized that this is a time in which the British Crown is under immense pressure because of the ongoing war, and this is the best time in which they can create much more pressure upon the British government, forcing them or compelling them to satisfy their aspirations. And in order to do so, they organized these movements, these numerous movements like Khilafat movement, like the Rowlatt Satyagraha, and they united the Indian citizens, either the Muslims or the Hindus, and they compelled them to fulfill their aspirations. One of the key aspirations of the Indian nationalists that were not fulfilled by the Parliamentary reforms of 1909 was the establishment of a responsible government and formation of the parliamentary system of governance or government in the country. So because of this amid pressure, the British Crown issued a proclamation in the public on 20 August 1917 that the policy of His Majesty's government in India is to increase the association of the Indians in the administration of the government and also the formation of self-governing institutions in the British India. जिसका मतलब ये होता है कि उन्होंने ऐसा प्रोक्लेमेशन दिया, उन्होंने ये कहा पब्लिक में कि हमारी पॉलिसी यही है कि हम चाहते हैं कि जो भारत के लोग हैं वो भारत के प्रशासन में उनको इन्वॉल्व किया जाए तथा सेल्फ गवर्निंग इंस्टीट्यूशंस का फॉर्मेशन किया जाए ब्रिटिश भारत में, नॉट इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया. आफ्टर ऑल दैट व्हाट हैपेंड वाज formulate the proclamation. The then Secretary of State for India, Lord Montego, and the then Governor General of India, Lord Chelmsford, were given the responsibility, and they produced the Montego-Chelmsford Report of 1919, after whose recommendations the Government of India Act 1919 was enacted, which was the amendment of the Government of India Act 1915. Now we will discuss the key features of the Government of India Act 1919. The main and the principal feature of the Government of India Act 1919 was the introduction of the diarchy in the provinces. Diarchy is known as the dual government in the provinces. So what is diarchy? Diarchy is the introduction of the responsible government in the province. For the first time, responsible government was introduced in India, that is in province, not at the central level. So basically what happened in diarchy was that the rule of the governor will be there through governor general as it was earlier, but the rule of the elected people through legislative assembly will be there as well. So before all that, what actually happened at the Indian level or the national level was that the subjects of the administration were divided in between center and province. The subjects that were put under the center was known as the central subjects, and the subjects that were put upon the provincial level was known as the provincial subjects. There was further subdivision upon the provincial subjects, namely transferred subjects and the reserved subjects. Transferred subjects were those subjects on which the legislative assembly was entitled to make laws, and the governor was the governor had to administer upon those subjects with the help of the council of ministers, whereas the reserved subjects were those subjects on which the governor himself along with the executive officials had to administer, and there was no role of the elected representatives in it. आप रिस्पॉन्सिबल गवर्नमेंट को ऐसे समझिए कि चुनी हुई गवर्नमेंट के टाइप का, मतलब जिसका इलेक्शन हुआ हो, मतलब जिसको जनता इलेक्ट भी कर सकती थी और रिमूव भी कर सकती थी, उसको बोलेंगे हम फॉर्मेशन ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबल गवर्नमेंट का. द सेकेंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर of this Government of India Act 1919 was the relaxation of the central control over the province. What, as we already know, that there was already the division of the subjects in between the center and the province. So basically what happened was that the province got its subjects on which it was entitled to make laws, and the center also had its subjects on which it was entitled to make laws. Namely, or we can understand as the central subjects were those subjects which was of the national importance, and the provincial subjects were those subjects which was of the importance at the provincial level. So basically what happened was that now along with all that, there was central budget as well as the provincial budget. The province had its subjects on which it could levy tax, it could collect tax, and it could make its own budget for its development, which is followed till now as well. There was division of power not only in administrative or legislative spheres but also in the financial sphere. Now the state or the province and the center had different sources to collect the taxes. The state or the province could collect its own tax, could levy its own tax, and the center could collect its own tax and levy its own tax, and in this way they could generate their own revenue, and they were entitled to prepare or to present their own budget. Therefore the center had central budget and the province had provincial budget in this regard. But we should understand one thing: there was division of power, but there was not federal division of power. It should not be mistaken as there was the federal distribution of power. It was just the delegation of power from the central level to the provincial level. It is not like as it is today, as we will read in the part 9 of the Indian Constitution when we will reach there. The delegation of the power from the central level to the provincial level means that the center is the chief authority now as well. That means the center retained the power to legislate for the state or the province on any subject, any matter as it requires. The Governor General is now as well the main responsible authority, and its responsibility is only to the Secretary of State for India, that is the Crown. In order to approve any particular bill or the proposal that is passed in the legislative assembly of the province, the assent of the Governor General is still required. The Governor General could still veto that particular thing. Even if there is assent of Governor, then too a bill cannot be passed without the assent of the Governor General. That was that kind of control the governor general had now as well, in, at the province level, you can say. The third most important feature of this Montego-Chelmsford reforms of 1919 was that the Indian Legislative Assembly was made more representative. Even now, the officials were the main responsible authorities along with the Governor General of India. Although bicameral legislature was introduced for the first time in India, the Indian legislature at the central level now had two houses, namely the upper house, that is the Council of State, that we know as Rajya Sabha, and the lower house, that is the Legislative Assembly. In the both houses, the majority was of the elected representatives. But the main contradiction was, even though the majority was of the elected representatives in the both houses, but then too, even a particular proposal is passed or bill is passed, the Governor General had all the power to veto that particular thing, or to not give assent to any particular bill, because without his assent a proposal cannot be placed in the house as well. So if there is no assent, then a proposal cannot be placed at all. But even after his assent, if a particular bill is passed, then he could veto that particular thing. He could pass ordinances, or even if he thinks that a particular thing is desired and the legislative assemblies doesn't think like that, and that thing is not done by the legislative assembly, then he had all the power to certify that particular thing which he wants is required and to get it approved. That kind of power the Governor General had at that point of time. So basically all those reforms that were put forward by these Montego-Chelmsford reforms were at one side like that, it looked like that there are reforms, something has been done which was desired by the Indian nationalists. But on the other side, if you look at it with depth, then you will find that no reforms were actually done. All those things that was done were artificial. That means just to show that they have done something. Now we will discuss the shortcomings of the Government of India Act 1919. The first shortcoming of the Government of India Act 1919 can be said as the non-formation of the independent institutions like independent judiciary, independent media, or independent bureaucracy. Even now the judiciary was like a puppet in the hand of the Governor General, who controlled the judiciary now as well. The second shortcoming of the Government of India Act can be said as that even now the Governor General remained the chief authority or the central authority in the context of India, in the context of the governance of India. The Governor General, along with his Executive Council, was the one who decided that which subjects are going to be the provincial subjects, which subjects are going to be the central subjects, and they could change the subject as per as their wish, as per as they wanted. That was there. And the third and the most important shortcoming of the Government of India Act 1919 that can be said as there was diarchy in the provincial level, as there was dual governance, as there were subjects that were reserved for the legislation for the legislative assembly in the province, known as the transferred subject, and the subjects that were reserved for the governor and his executive council at the provincial level, known as the reserved subjects. But there was no such subject in the transferred subjects in which the legislation could be done, and without encroachment, legislation could be done without encroaching any subject of the रिजर्व सब्जेक्ट लिस्ट. बोलने का मतलब ये है कि ऐसा कोई सा भी सब्जेक्ट नहीं था ट्रांसफर्ड सब्जेक्ट्स में से जिस पे लॉ बनाया जा सके, और उस लॉ को बनाते समय हम उस रिजर्व सब्जेक्ट्स के किसी लिस्ट के किसी सब्जेक्ट को ना छुएं या उसको इनक्रोच ना करें. तो ऐसा तो बना दिया गया था. एंड इवन आफ्टर ऑल दैट द मेन थिंग इज दैट द बजट और द रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन was in the hand of the was in the reserved list. That means there was no interference in the case of the budget by the members of the provincial assembly. Even other than that, the bureaucrats were not responsible to the council of the ministers, the elected ministers or the elected representatives. They were only responsible to the crown through the Secretary of State for India. So these were the shortcomings of the Government of India Act 1919, and it was not able to satisfy the Indians at all, and it barely satisfied Indian, and it mostly dissatisfied the Indian people, the Indian nationalists, and it further led Gandhiji to ask for the Swaraj or self-government in the further coming nationalist movements, and it led to the asking for the arrival of the non-cooperation movement in 1920. That's it for today's video. If you like this video, then do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Until the next video, goodbye.